Hampton and Florence. I'm Nancy Sardison, and I'm a member of our sanctuary team. Many thanks to Amanda Van Lankveld and Dave Nelson, who are running the Zoom service this morning. I'm very glad to be here and to see all of you. This is a day of great celebration. As most of you know, for the past 3 years, we have been providing sanctuary to Arita. She is a Russian immigrant who came to us to avoid deportation, and in doing that, to avoid tearing her family apart. She received good news on her legal appeal this week, no longer needs sanctuary, and is free to pursue a path to permanent residency. Arita will speak this morning, as will several of our sanctuary team members. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. Those principles and values move us to remember that we in Northampton inhabit unceded land, in other words, stolen, of the Potomac and Nipmuc peoples. Our values and principles remind us to acknowledge our responsibility to face all the painful legacies of dispossession and systematic racism that are part of our collective history, even as we affirm and celebrate the legacies that inspire us. We are here to support and celebrate one another and to renew ourselves with hope and gratitude and new resolve. If you are new or returning after a time away, welcome. We're very glad you're here. Please feel free to fill out a virtual visitor card. Doing that allows us to put you on our email contact list. There's a link to the card in the chat. We ask that you remain muted throughout the service and turn off your videos except during the greeting to make the video run as smoothly as possible. We hope you'll stay for social hour afterwards. It's a great way to engage in meaningful conversation with people you might not otherwise have met. And before it starts, we'll be glad to all say hello to Arita and the rest of the family. And now we'll begin our service.
Easter is a holiday of miracles. It is life from death, joy from sorrow, celebration from mourning. It reminds us that the story continues and that fears and trials can be transformed into flowers of hope. It calls us into a world renewed and alive and filled with joy.
Please join now in saying the words to accompany lighting our chalice. We light our chalice to bear witness to the power of faith and endurance, to honor the power of community, to look forward with gratitude, and to renew our commitment to justice.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to get to celebrate with you all today. What a wonderful relief to have Arita out with her family and to get to celebrate it together today. Our story is called The Magical Yet by Angela DiTerlizzi, and it's a way to think about how we've all been patient and kept hope in supporting Arita. And so it's very appropriate for today and for that celebration. I've also been thinking about our families and how patient you all have been in working and schooling from home. And a lot of schools are going back full time tomorrow. So I just want to honor all the parents and caregivers who've been working so hard over this year and the kids. And I'm glad to celebrate that piece with you too. And here comes the story. The Magical Yet by Angela DiTerlizzi. There are days when your dreams haven't come true, or you're upset by the things you can't do. If you've lost or failed or cried just a bit, you're tired of waiting, ready to quit. I think we can all relate to that. Like that shiny new bike you couldn't ride, and it didn't matter how hard you tried. You couldn't pedal and you couldn't steer and you couldn't get that bike into gear. Then, when you thought you were on the right track, you popped a wheelie and fell on your back. And now you won't ride. No way, not never. No riding for you, you'll walk forever. Don't give up now. There's a major game changer, a most amazing thought rearranger. Someone to show you how good you can get. Now introducing the Magical Yet. With this Yet's magic, you can begin to see what you're doing beyond where you've been. There are so many things that you've learned to do when you didn't know the Yet was with you. Like when you babbled before you could talk, or how you crawled before you could walk. Yet's a dreamer, a schemer, a hoper, a trier, a maker, a doer, a gotta fly higher. This Yet finds a way, even when you don't, and yet knows you will when you think you won't. Like that shiny new bike that you couldn't ride, hop right back on with the Yet by your side. Yet doesn't mind warm-ups, fixes and flops, do-overs, redos, stumbles and stops. Yet knows there's mistakes, some big and some small. With Yet, you're sure to get over them all. Play the kazoo or play the bassoon, jam with the Yet, and you'll soon be in tune. Try skateboarding tricks like the ollie heel flip. This Yet can get to the championship. Tongue twisters twisted your tongue in a knot, Yet says keep trying and practice a lot. Be patient, Yet can't do it all overnight. Some things take days, months, or years to get right. But if you keep leaping, dreaming, wishing, waiting, learning, trying, missing, with the Yet as your guide along the way, you'll do all the things you can't do today. Now you're bolder, braver, starting to see, with Yet you can get where you want to be. You finally did it. Yet knew you could. You're not just riding, you're getting quite good. But don't stop now, you've got so much to do. The good news is this Yet grows with you. So no matter how big or old you may get, you'll never outgrow, you'll never forget. You can always believe in the magic of Yet. Thanks.
And now it's time for us to greet one another. You are invited to turn on your video and wave and say hello in the chat. And if you are new or newish and would like to, please let us know where you're from and a little bit about yourself in the chat. If you are having trouble seeing people, there is a box with some squares up at the top corner of your window, and that will let you choose gallery view to see all of the smiling faces.
Hello again, everybody. I also wanted to mention that Amanda's going to open, before we do social hour this morning, Amanda will reopen the greeting function, and you'll all have a chance to say hello to Arita, and if her children haven't eaten too many Easter eggs, then they may have enough patience to be on the screen, and you'll get a chance to see them, and you'll be amazed if you haven't seen them for a long time at how much they have grown. So you can look forward to that at the end of the service, and then after that, we'll put people into breakout rooms. But we want to make sure that the video is off, that we're not recording before we have children on the screen. So it's wonderful to see you all. Oh, what a day, says Lucy. Yes, oh, what a day. Oh, hi, Susan. Susan Martinson, Judy's daughter. Nice to see you again. Great to see you. Wally and Paula, hello, hello, hello. I can't see. Laura S., hello, hello, hello. Andy Lecomte, nice to see you. I'm naming people that I don't know too well and might be new. Hi, Catherine. So wonderful to see you. All right, we're going to end our greeting time. And David McSparrington, great to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. End the greeting time and sing out everyone who is going to religious education. Please join us in singing them out. So today is the Christian holiday of Easter. It is the most holy day in the Christian calendar, and it marks the miraculous resurrection of Christ 3 days after his death by crucifixion. Easter is celebrated in spring because it is actually tied historically very closely to the Jewish holiday of Passover, the Last Supper, which in the Bible happens the day before Jesus is crucified, was a Passover Seder. And Passover is also a celebratory holiday. It marks the release, as we heard last week, of the Israelite peoples from slavery, aided by heaven-sent plagues in Egypt and by a miraculous parting of the Red Sea. So for many people, both holidays represent the promise of new life, and the transformation of despair into hope, possibility, and joy. And as Nancy said in the welcome, Arita Khachtaranova is a Russian immigrant who has been in this country since 2003. She came to us in April of 2018 for sanctuary in order to avoid deportation, and she will speak in just a few minutes in the service. We are celebrating the opportunity that Arita has been granted to pursue her legal case, to become a permanent resident in the U.S., to remain with her family as her children grow up, to start a business, and to give back to the community that has supported her these past 3 years. We celebrate the work we have done together with persistence and perseverance and, let's call it, stubbornness. There were many, many times when Arita and many of us were discouraged, when the legal work seemed stalled, when time dragged and dragged and dragged, when a petition was denied, when she and her children and husband were feeling the fear and the pain most acutely, even when we fruitlessly speculated from time to time about something we never named but called Plan B. But today we have new hope and new resolve. There is a path, and Arita is free to pursue that path. The work is not over, not yet. But in the spirit of Easter and Passover, and with great joy, we celebrate that magical yet. Let's join together in singing hymn number 18, What Wondrous Love.
To be gathered round. Good morning. I'm Kathy Brown, and I've been one of Arita's kitchen companions and have helped her with many fundraisers. I have had the pleasure of spending many hours with the children before the pandemic started, and I've also been one of her grocery shoppers, both before, during, and after the pandemic. We're very, very grateful for everyone who has donated the Stop and Shop gift cards that have made the shopping possible. On Sunday, September 17th, 2017, Janet began the worship service by quoting the prophet Amos. Let justice roll down like waters and the righteousness like the ever-flowing stream. This is from Amos chapter 5, verses 22 to 24. Later, she quoted another prophet, Jeremiah, who protested against sticking his neck out, but then did it anyway. Janet wove these prophets into a sermon about immigration justice. She educated us about ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and told us what they were doing when they detained and deported local immigrant workers. She told us about going to Hartford with other clergy to support Lucio Perez as he reported to ICE headquarters and was fitted with an ankle bracelet. A month later, Lucio decided to ask for sanctuary at First Churches in Amherst. Janet also reminded us about the local efforts to support undocumented immigrants, and she spoke about the role of religious communities and how we could help protect people who are at risk of being deported. And that was the setup. Corky is going to speak next.
I'm Corky Klimzak. Before the pandemic, my husband David and I spent many hours with the Arita's children, and they bestowed on him the nickname Daven, which has stuck. We became two of their many surrogate grandparents and became close to the whole family. I, like Kathy, have been a shopper for the family before and then all during the pandemic. Lori Loisel became president of the congregation in December of 2017, immediately after we voted to become a sanctuary congregation. And she has been one of our many active sanctuary volunteers. Lori isn't able to be with us this morning, but she introduced Thursday's press conference, and we're going to quote from some of what she said. Lori said, on September 17th, 2017, Reverend Janet Bush, minister of the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence, delivered a sermon raising the idea that we might become a sanctuary congregation. I remember that day vividly. At first, it seemed she was trying to talk us out of it. It could be risky. It would be inconvenient. It would be costly. It could bring conflict. And it might turn out badly. We might get attached to someone and then lose them. And then Janet said, I am not persuaded by all these good reasons. We are a religious community. We are not called to stand aside or apart. We are not called to avoid all risks or serve our convenience or spend all our money on ourselves. Lori continued, in a few minutes, Reverend Bush will take the microphone to thank a lot of people, but first I'd like to thank her. She provided the leadership that gave us courage to live our faith in a supreme manifestation of the second UU principle of justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Being a sanctuary congregation changed many of us as individuals, and it changed the Unitarian Society as an institution. Joan O'Brien is the chair of our sanctuary team. She has the final word in this reflection.
I'm Joan O'Brien, and I've been chair of the sanctuary team since we voted in December of 2017 to be a sanctuary congregation, and then began planning for the possibility of a request from someone in need. The sanctuary team has helped make sure that someone was paying attention to all the different aspects of our work. These included grocery shopping, as you've heard, because almost from the beginning, Arita did a lot of the cooking for her family and herself. But we did provide meals for a while, and I want to thank Bill Diamond, who coordinated both the grocery shoppers and the meal train, and thank all of those who cooked and brought meals to Arita and her family. Many thanks too to Mary Beth Bridingham, who is one of our shoppers, as well as to Corky and Kathy Brown, who both continued to shop even when many of us began to stay home because of the pandemic. Kathy Lilly coordinated transportation for Arita's family. Jessica Harwood helped recruit babysitters for the children for some of the time they were here, meaning in the building, so that Arita and her husband could have time together, or so that she had time to cook. And we had an entire team to manage our accompaniment volunteers, chaired by Nancy Sardison and assisted by many people, especially Lisa Britland. For at least the first year, an accompaniment volunteer was in the building overnight, as well as during daytime hours when no staff were here. Whenever the children were present, there was at least one other non-staff adult downstairs. Many, many, many of you, as well as members of the greater community, and sometimes both Lisa and Jessica, when they were not working, volunteered this way. Janet volunteered this way also. Many of you regularly donated script or money to our sanctuary fund, and others organized individual and group fundraisers. Britt continues to do so in the Music from the Sanctuary series. Margaret Humbert-Droz and Mary Anasara coordinated volunteers to sell Arita's pierogies at 3 different farmers markets. And Margaret also did the family's weekly laundry. I wish there were time to name everybody who did 1 shift or 100 shifts, who added a hand in any way to our phenomenal collective effort. Thank you all. In her remarks at the press conference on Thursday, Lori also said this: Janet was accurate in her assessment of what providing sanctuary would be like. It was risky, inconvenient, expensive, and it caused conflict. She was right that we would get attached to someone, or 5 someones in this case, but this did not turn out badly. Lori was right. There were challenges, and there will still be challenges ahead. But more importantly, it has been a miraculous experience. Throughout the last 3.5 years, I've heard over and over how much this shared commitment to Arita and her family has brought this congregation closer together. It could have been otherwise. But many of you, many of us, grew and were changed. And as was predicted, we also fell in love.
Hi, everyone. It is so nice to see all of you today. What a year it has been. I would like to start my speech today by filling you on the news about my case, which I am sure most of you heard about. I came into the Unitarian Society in April of 2018, when I had completely lost hope and exhausted every option to get a stay of removal or get an attorney who would take my case. But by then, I already met a few members of the society, but still wasn't sure what it was going to be like, and I was just so tired. I was nervous coming in here because I had never met people up until that moment who would help me without having some kind of hidden agenda. I knew that day that this was not the case. My children stayed with me the first night, which meant everything to me. And the next day was the auction. Remember that? I came out confused, quiet, which I never am usually, not knowing what to expect. People at the congregation greeted me with open arms and treated me with respect and kindness. That's when I knew these were my people. I asked my former boss if he could help me with my immigration troubles, and he told me he couldn't, that I need to find my people. And I didn't know what he meant by that until I met you. It's with your assistance, patience, and combined efforts that we have come to this joyous moment. As soon as I came here, you started forming teams to help me help me make my stay away from my family bearable. I could never thank you enough. I met Lisa that night, and her confidence and sincere kindness carried me through so many tough moments. I came to her with so many problems, it's impossible to count. And she always had a solution or knew who could help. I truly don't think I could make it through all this without her. She's a very, very strong person. When I would break down, I could tell that she held back the tears and heard me out and talked to me until I felt better. There were many moments like these. She stayed extra hours, went to the store, got the items for the pierogi, brought me furniture, walked me through some tasks that I didn't know how to do on my own. She was always there, and I could never thank her enough for that. She is amazing. I got to know her family and her husband, Chris, who also came to my rescue so many times. He made me many, many meals, desserts, and helped me out with the fundraisers. Thank you for that. I consider the Unitarian Society as my family. Sometimes the tasks would seem impossible to solve, and Lisa would come up with a solution. Jessica and Lisa have helped me when I needed it and sat by me when I just needed company. Thank you. Jessica and I also became friends and family quick. She helped me hire the babysitters for my children, did shopping, did volunteer shifts. She and her wife held a great fundraiser, played with my kids, and treated them as their own, with lots of love. That is how I would describe this community and congregation: loving and caring. Jaden had a very hard time adjusting to the new way of living, and Jessica was one of the people he felt comfortable around of, and that meant a lot to me. It was comforting to see that my family felt accepted and how they found their people. Jessica would read stories to them and talk to Jaden. They had their small rituals and things that they did together, and they all seemed to have fun doing it. Thank you. Janet and Booker, Mom and Dad, that's what I call them. Thank you for being by my side and seeing me through this. Thank you for hearing me out, giving me direction, and following my lead when I needed. Booker, thank you for being my personal doctor and answering every phone call, even though a lot of times it was to get in touch with Janet. You and Janet are two peas in a pod, and your presence alone calmed me and put me back on the right track. Janet, you have done so much for my family and I, and you haven't stopped. Meeting after meeting, phone call after phone call, one challenge after another, you helped me. You helped me heal and persevere as a mother would. Thank you. I have so many folk to thank. As I am thinking about all the screens here, I have to say, thank you all for being my family and loving me the way you do. The feeling is mutual. Nancy Satterson, Lori Loisel, Lucy Baruch, Charlotte Davenport, David Wick, Joan O'Brien, Harriet and Bill Diamond, that's my sanctuary team. We took on so many incredibly complex tasks and found a way to solve them. Thank you. Kathy Lilly, thank you for arranging rides for my children and being flexible. Thank you, Corky Klimzak, Mary Beth Drygam, and Kathy Brown for doing my shopping and so much more. I know I am very particular and it is very hard to shop for someone you just met, but we always made it work. Thank you, Claire and Eric Day, for doing the shopping at the Survival Center and arranging a crew to do that when you weren't available. Thank you, Margaret Humbert-Droz, for doing my laundry and being the manager of my pierogi business. Your expertise and hard work put my pierogis on the map. Thank you. I still have a lot to learn from you. Thank you, Barbara Smith and Jane Deal, for helping me with the holiday fundraisers. Thank you, Runa and Runa, for treating my children as your own grandkids, same as Jane Simons, Ginny, Tink and Chris, Corky and David, and so many more. Jen and Christine. Thank you, Gail Hudson and Jen Weiss, for listening to me and always helping out. Jen and Christine Sass, Carmen Juno, Craig Dreesen and Diane Bowman, I'll be knocking on your door frequently, as we are now neighbors. Thank you. Like I said, I have many people to thank. I wish I could name you all, but Janet would have to turn off my video. I know all of you by name, and I see you. I see you. I will never be able to forget what folks did for me, and I am forever grateful. In the beginning of my speech, I mentioned that my stay of removal was denied. When I came here, the Pioneer Valley Worker Center and the Society found me, my attorney, Megan Clute, at Curran, Berger, and Clute. That crew made it happen. I had been trying to reopen my case since 2009, and that is what we have accomplished here. My case is reopened, and ICE no longer has jurisdiction over me. I still have to go to court, and there will be more work in my future, but this decision of the Board of Immigration Appeals couldn't have been better. I am beyond happy. I am no longer under deportation, and even though it will take me a while to adjust, I no longer have to look over my shoulder. I still cannot believe it. I have kept my feelings locked up for such a long time and got denied so many times that this seems like a dream. Thank you, Unitarian Society. I hope I can visit and still be a member of your community, because you are my family and you are my people I longed for. I love you from the bottom of my heart, and I would like to end this speech with the words of Elizabeth Edwards. Resilience is accepting your new reality, even if it's less good than the one you had before. You can fight it. You can do nothing but scream about what you have lost, or you can accept that and try to put together something that's good. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Arita. That was wonderful. So we're not going to stop saying thank you. It took me almost 7 minutes at the press conference for me to thank people. And I do need to add a little bit to what Arita said about the Pioneer Valley Workers Center. From the very, very beginning, from the middle of 2017, we were doing this work in partnership with Margaret Sawyer and the Pioneer Valley Workers Center. For 2 years before the pandemic, Margaret, Arita, someone from the sanctuary team, it was usually Lori Loisel, and I would meet almost every week. Margaret and the team from the Workers Center helped us fundraise. They set up the GoFundMe site. They ran clothing drives. They made cookies that we sold at our fundraisers, our concert fundraisers. They brainstormed legal strategies. They supported the pierogi business. As Rita told you, it's through the Workers Center that Arita met her lawyer, Megan. She also met Monty Belmonte and our amazing, amazing Congressman, Jim McGovern, who provided all kinds of encouragement and support. I am very, very grateful for Margaret's passion and commitment, her leadership, and her friendship. And I also want to acknowledge our faith partners, the two Jewish and many of the Christian congregations in Northampton, First Church Amherst, and beyond. Many of our volunteers, our accompaniment volunteers, came from Edwards Church, First Churches, B'nai Israel and Beit Avah, and the Northampton Friends, and they also honored us with their financial contributions. Members of Congregation B'nai Israel were especially persistent in offering financial support. So there's a special thank you to Steve Ahrens and Sarah Hamowitz of that congregation, and also to Sarah Lewis Coolin. During the offertory, we're going to show you the list that we made of all our known donors and volunteers. I hope we didn't miss too many. We honor and we thank you all. We are dedicating 100% of the proceeds from this morning's offering to our sanctuary fund. Arita's transition to self-sufficiency will take some time. And as you heard, there are ongoing legal expenses for the next phase. Your continued generosity has been one of the many, many miracles of this long, long adventure. These are words from the Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, a Unitarian Universalist clergy member who is African American. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered among the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is our religious community that ensures us that we're not struggling for justice on our own. This community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens. Together, our strength is renewed. Let's take a moment together in gratitude and in silence. It is a harsh reality that undocumented immigrants in this country still live in constant fear and dread. And the Christian preacher and writer Frederick Buechner wrote, "The trouble with steeling ourselves against the harshness of reality is that the same steel that secures our lives against being troubled or upset also secures our lives against being opened up and transformed by the holy power that life itself comes from." That harshness of reality can be something in our own lives or something in the lives of someone else. I'm going to read what he wrote again. "The trouble with steeling ourselves against the harshness of reality is that the same steel that secures our lives against being troubled or upset also secures our lives against being opened up and transformed by the holy power that life itself comes from." So that steel he's talking about goes by many names. Indifference is one of its names, being indifferent to the suffering or plight of others or to anything that doesn't directly affect us or doesn't seem to affect us. Complacency is another name for that steel, being satisfied with ourselves and our comforts and our accomplishments and our pleasures, not taking any risk to challenge our assumptions about who we are or what we are. Lori wrote that being a sanctuary congregation changed many of us as individuals, and it changed the Unitarian Society as an institution. And she and I had many conversations in preparing for the press conference and everything else in the past week. But I only heard her say that at noon on Thursday, and I didn't have a chance to talk to her about it, find out what she meant. Joan said that this work brought us closer together as a congregation. And I'm wondering what you think. If you were here before that time, whether or not you've been actively involved in all the sanctuary work, have you changed? Has your experience of the congregation changed? Have you or we been transformed in some way by the holy power from which life itself comes? I think we have. When we voted to become a sanctuary congregation, we made a decision to face the harshness of a reality that was inhumane and tearing families apart. Much of what we did was complicated and messy. Some of you know this about me. I'm somebody who tends to favor being efficient. And what we did was colossally inefficient. And it put us in a position where we had to take risks. It turns out it wasn't really risky in the way that some of us worried it would be. It wasn't risky in the sense that we ever had to face legal action ourselves or that we ever had an immigration official banging at the side door. None of that happened. Nothing close to that happened. The risk rather was in the messiness and the conflicts, big and small. In September 2017, a group of people formed what was called the Sanctuary Discernment Team. And that group were some of Sanctuary's most passionate supporters from day one. So they did research to share with the congregation, they consulted with other congregations, they invited in experts to speak to us, and they offered listening circles, opportunities for people to come and talk about their hopes, questions, concerns, worries about what becoming a sanctuary congregation might mean. But it turned out that some of the people, some of us, the ones with worries and concerns, didn't feel safe or heard. And a few took the risk to say so. Instead of getting defensive, the discernment team took a step back. They slowed the timetable, slowed it by 6 weeks. They redesigned their process. They took more time to listen themselves. And then they continued. And that was an example, I believe, of how we as a congregation were unknowingly, subtly, without fanfare, being opened up and transformed. And I see us still taking those kinds of risks. We also opened our arms and hearts, asked for and accepted help from other congregations, Christian congregations and Jewish congregations in our community. And we realized, maybe some for the first time, how much of our faith, how much of our values we hold in common. I think this was another way in which we were being opened up and transformed. I'm sure you can think of others, for yourself, for the society as a whole. And we have so many stories to tell. I hope we'll continue to reflect and keep telling them. And I do think that the racial justice work so many of you are participating in so many different ways, and our passion for fighting voter suppression and working on the election are other signs. Frederick Buechner said this. It's a little bit like what Mark Morrison Reed also wrote. You can survive on your own. You can grow strong on your own. You can even prevail on your own. But you cannot become human on your own. And Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson wrote, if you see something that needs to be repaired and how to repair it, then you have found a piece of the world that God has left for you to complete. Arita and her family gave us, for a time, something that needed repair, sometimes even just holding for a while. That work is not complete, and none of this work will ever be complete. Work for justice is transformative and is never finished. But what we have done has really mattered, and we have wonderful reason today to rejoice. We have seen that if we see something that needs to be tended to, and if we work in community to tend to it, we will be opened up. We will be made more fully human. We ourselves will be helped to be transformed by the holy power that life itself comes from. As a congregation, we'll continue to companion Arita and her family as they get back on their feet and transition to living free from the shadow of fear and dread. I am honored and blessed to be on this path of transformation with all of you. Happy Easter, and thank you. And now let's sing together the Easter hymn, O Day of Light and Gladness.
O day of light and gladness.
The story does continue. Fears and trials have been transformed into flowers of hope. Go now into this day of light and gladness. Go in hope and go in peace. Happy Easter.